The first thing I noticed was the extra wine glass. Not mine. Not hers. Not even clean. It had red smudges along the rim and a fingerprint that didn't belong to either of us. It was sitting on the edge of the table where my chair should have been. I stood in the hallway watching her fuss over the dining room like a hostess prepping for a magazine shoot. Candles lit. Napkins folded into triangles. She even swapped the cheap plates for the ones we got as a wedding gift, the ones still in plastic wrap since 2016. And she was humming. Not to me. Not for me. But humming like she was nervous. Like someone special was coming. Cleared my throat. She jumped, turned, then blinked like she'd completely forgotten I lived here. "Oh," she said flatly. "You're early." It was 6:04 p.m. on my birthday. "I said I'd be home at 6, I replied, stepping fully into the room. She nodded, avoiding eye contact. "Yeah, right." She was wearing perfume I hadn't smelled in years. Lipstick, a red dress with a slit. That dress was reserved for anniversaries, or used to be. We didn't go out much anymore, so I assumed it had retired quietly into the closet. Yet here it was revived. I glanced again at the table. 3 chairs. Not 2. And no cake. No card. No dumb joke like, "Welcome to 42. Just tension. "You inviting someone over?" I asked, doing my best not to sound like I was accusing her. But let's be honest, I was. She didn't answer right away. She walked past me to the kitchen, pulling a bottle of Merlot out of the fridge. When she returned, she casually said, "Vance might stop by." Vance. The name thudded in my stomach like a fist. I didn't know Vance personally, but I knew the type. He was the guy she brought up in passing, laughing a little too much when describing his stories from the office. "He's harmless," she'd once said. Totally not my type. But here she was, dressed like temptation, humming like a teenager, setting the table like she was preparing an offering. "For my birthday?" I asked, and this time my voice cracked a little. That bitter edge I tried to hide surfaced like a wound reopening. Her reply, "Don't make it a thing, Curtis. Please, don't make it a thing." I stared at the empty chair, the chair meant for someone else. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't a guest at my own birthday dinner. I was an inconvenience. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse her of anything. I just walked out to the backyard, sat on the freezing patio bench, and let my breath fog up under the porch light. Through the window, I saw her take the 3rd glass away, dump the wine, and quickly reset the table for 2. Just 2. Then she hesitated, picked up her phone, texted someone. A minute later, she came outside. "You always ruin things," she said quietly. I didn't answer. "I was just trying to make this night feel normal," she added. "You always make everything about you." That one stung, because it was supposed to be about me. Just once. But I realized something in that moment. I didn't belong in this version of her life anymore. So I stood up. I didn't slam the door. I didn't pack a bag. I just walked. Past the mailbox. Past the streetlight. Past every stupid part of my life that told me to just be grateful she stayed. And that night when I left without another word, everything changed. She thought I'd come back. But I didn't. And that's when secrets started slipping out, one by one, like matches thrown into a pile of dry leaves. I walked aimlessly for nearly 2 hours. Not far from the house, just loops around the neighborhood. I passed the same stop sign 5 times. The winter air burned my ears, but I didn't go back inside. I needed that cold. I needed something to sting worse than what I felt in my chest. What was I supposed to say to her? Why did you dress up for him and not me? Why did you make me feel like a stranger in my own home on my birthday? She would have called me dramatic, said I was twisting things. Alora had a talent for making me feel guilty for noticing the things she didn't want me to notice. I finally returned close to 9 p.m. The porch light was still on. No cars in the driveway except mine. The 3rd chair was gone from the table. The candles had burned low. There were 2 empty plates in the sink. The bottle of wine was missing from the counter. And the front door? Unlocked. That detail somehow hit me harder than anything else. She always locked the door, even when I was just out mowing the lawn. But not tonight. Tonight, I guess she didn't expect me to come back. I walked through the quiet house like a ghost. The lights were dimmed. The air smelled faintly of her perfume. And the stereo was still playing that soft, moody playlist she always used when she was trying to impress someone. Alora wasn't in the living room, or the kitchen, or the bedroom. She was in the guest room. The door was cracked open and I could see the light from her phone casting flickers across the ceiling. She was lying on her back, earbuds in, smiling at her screen. I watched for a full minute unnoticed. She never looked up. Then she giggled. That sound used to be mine. I used to make her laugh like that. I didn't say anything. I backed out slowly and returned to the bedroom. I lay down fully dressed and stared at the ceiling fan spinning above me. I didn't cry. I just listened. Listened to the faint vibrations of her laughter from the next room. Like I wasn't even there. The next morning she acted like nothing happened. She made coffee, scrolled through her phone, and said, "You just disappeared last night." That was kind of rude. I blinked. "You really don't see it, do you?" She looked up. "See what?" "Yesterday. Everything. The way you acted." She rolled her eyes. "Curtis, you're being paranoid again." I dressed up because I wanted to feel good. I invited Vance because he's funny and knows wine. You always say you don't like attention on your birthday, and then when I actually try to make it relaxed, you storm off. I didn't argue. I didn't want to play that game anymore. Because now I wasn't just hurt, I was suspicious. I started rewinding moments in my head. The late nights. The phone she never left face up anymore. The business trips that weren't even on her company's calendar. The gym membership she signed up for even though she hadn't gone once. And the strangest thing? My toothbrush was missing. Not gone. Just replaced. A brand new one, unopened, sitting next to hers. Mine had been worn out, bent from use. I hadn't thrown it away. She hadn't asked. It was just swapped. Like someone else had used it. Or like she'd hidden the real one. It was small. Insignificant, maybe. But it ate at me. Like something in the house had been rearranged to erase me bit by bit. That day, while she was at work, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went through her old phone, the one she used before switching last month. She left it in her drawer, probably thinking it was harmless. No one ever assumes you'll check the past when they've locked down the present. It wasn't password protected. The messages were deleted. Of course. But not the photos. One in particular froze me. It was dated 2 months ago. Same red dress. Same smile. But it wasn't taken at her house. It looked like a hotel mirror selfie. And in the reflection, barely visible, was a man sitting on the bed behind her. Shirtless. Holding a wine glass. Smiling. My wife was smiling too. That image shattered the last of my denial. I closed the phone and stared at the wall for a long time. There were no screaming fits, no plans for revenge, no phone calls to friends. I just sat in silence, trying to figure out when I stopped being her husband and started being her audience. That night, I didn't confront her. I waited. I wanted to see how far she'd go. Because I wasn't just living with a liar, I was sleeping next to one who had grown comfortable enough to forget she was lying at all. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed beside her, counting the seconds between each of her breaths, memorizing the rhythm of someone who could lie so effortlessly and still rest like the world hadn't shifted beneath her. I watched the early light begin to seep through the blinds and wondered how long she'd been practicing this version of herself, the one who could hide a man behind her smile, behind a mirror, behind a locked phone, and still kiss me goodnight like nothing had changed. When she stirred and reached for her phone, I pretended to be asleep. She quietly slipped out of bed, padded to the bathroom, and closed the door without locking it. That told me everything. She didn't think she had anything to hide, not anymore. Or worse, she didn't think I'd care enough to look. I made myself coffee, stood at the window, and watched our dog Waffles bark at his own reflection in the sliding glass door. That dog still thought everything made sense. I envied him. She came out of the bathroom 20 minutes later wearing lipstick and a blazer, dressed for work, but not the kind of work I'd seen her do. Her makeup was heavier, her hair more styled. She smelled like vanilla and risk. She leaned against the kitchen island, sipping her espresso like a woman in control of every scene she entered. "Big meeting today?" I asked casually. She nodded. "New client pitch." I nodded back. "What's the client's name?" "Elwick Financial," she said without blinking. That would have been a great answer if she hadn't already told me last week that Elwick was her client 2 months ago and they'd passed. I didn't challenge her. I just smiled. "Good luck." She kissed my cheek like I was furniture and walked out the door. I didn't go to work. I didn't call in either. I just sat there, sipping cold coffee and making a decision. If I confronted her, she'd spin it. She'd gaslight, deflect, maybe even cry. But I wanted more than a confession, I wanted clarity. I wanted proof that what I suspected wasn't just insecurity or imagination. I needed to see it with my own eyes. So I followed her. I waited until 10. Then I got in my car and drove the route she usually takes to work. She wasn't there. I checked the parking garage, no sign of her car. I drove past her office building twice. Still nothing. I parked 2 blocks away and waited. At 11:13 a.m. I saw her. Not at the office. Not walking to a client meeting. But coming out of a boutique hotel near the freeway, sunglasses on, laughing. Vance was with her. They didn't look guilty. They looked comfortable. Like 2 people who had done this dozens of times. He opened her car door like they'd rehearsed it. She adjusted her coat like she just rolled off freshly pressed sheets. They drove off in his car. I didn't follow them. I didn't need to. I went home and sat on the floor of the laundry room surrounded by her clothes, her scent, her past promises. She came home later than usual that evening. Client dinner ran long, she said, kicking off her heels. Elwick Financial? I asked. She froze. Just a second too long. Then smiled. Yeah. She had no idea I'd been watching her walk out of a hotel room 5 hours earlier. I could have confronted her then. But I didn't. I wanted to see how far she'd take it. I wanted to see how long she'd keep up the performance before slipping. So I asked her what she had for dinner. Steak, she replied, sitting on the couch. That was her second mistake. Because I knew the hotel restaurant served only seafood. She picked at her phone all night, occasionally glancing at me like she could sense something shifting but couldn't name it yet. I gave her nothing. No suspicion. No anger. I let her live inside the lie. And by doing that I watched her become bold. She started coming home later. Laughing more. Wearing perfume to take out the trash. Telling me she needed alone time to read and then disappearing for hours. She stopped pretending to care about dinners or shared shows or even waffles. She was unraveling, and the worst part? She thought I couldn't see it. I started collecting details. Receipts. Call logs. Hotel check-ins. I didn't know why. I wasn't planning to sue her or expose her. I think I just needed to make sense of it all. To catalog the exact points where she stopped choosing me. One night, around 2 a.m., I woke up and she wasn't in bed. I found her downstairs on the couch, phone screen lighting up her face. She was texting. Smiling. Whispering things like, "You're terrible," and "No, I can't say that, you're crazy." I stood behind the wall, unseen, listening. And when she started typing, "He doesn't suspect anything," my stomach turned. That was the moment I stopped being a husband. I became her alibi. She was so certain she had me wrapped in silence. That I'd never leave. That I was too passive, too forgiving, too soft. And honestly, for a long time she was right. But not anymore. Because when you lie to someone who listens, who really listens, eventually they hear everything you're not saying. And now I was listening. Carefully. The next week I started noticing the spaces. Not just the gaps in our conversations or the time she spent away from me, but actual physical spaces. Drawers she didn't let me open. A locked folder on her laptop. A strange credit card charge from a boutique I'd never heard of. But the most unsettling discovery came late one Wednesday night when I was looking for an old phone charger in the garage and noticed something off. The attic access door was open. Just slightly. Not enough to suggest danger or drama, just enough to look like someone had gone up recently and didn't bother to close it right. We rarely touched the attic. There were some boxes from our early years up there, my childhood baseball glove, her college photo albums, but nothing worth hiding. I climbed up quietly with a flashlight. At first, I saw the usual dust and insulation. But then, behind a stack of plastic bins, I spotted a small suitcase. One I hadn't seen before. Not an old one either, brand new, with a travel tag still attached. I unzipped it and found a few changes of clothing, a small black notebook, a prepaid flip phone, and a makeup bag with miniature toiletries. A getaway kit. My chest tightened. I wasn't even angry. Not then. I was disturbed. It was like realizing someone you sleep beside has been digging a tunnel out of your life while smiling through dinner. I didn't touch anything. I zipped it back up, closed the attic hatch, and sat on the garage floor for half an hour, trying to decide what kind of person prepares an escape before she even admits she's leaving. Or maybe she wasn't planning to leave. Maybe she just wanted insurance in case I finally grew a spine. That same night, I heard her talking in her sleep. It wasn't the words that bothered me, it was the tone. She was whispering, smiling faintly, saying things like, "Just stay with me a little longer and he won't notice." It was the most affectionate I'd heard her sound in months, and she wasn't even awake. I started locking the bathroom door when I showered. Not because I feared her, but because I needed privacy. For once. A space where she couldn't walk in with her mask on and pretend like everything was fine. And every time I stood under the hot water, I'd imagine the life I thought we had, one I now understood was already dead. The worst part? She still performed normal. She still asked what I wanted from the grocery store. Still reminded me to take my jacket. Still fed waffles and laughed at the weather guy on TV. And somehow that performance hurt more than the lie itself. Because it proved she had rehearsed this. She'd built a script. And I was just another character reading lines I never agreed to. The tension built so slowly it was like fog filling a room, quiet, heavy, suffocating. One night, while folding laundry together, she said something that shook me more than all the texts and secrets combined. "I miss how easy it used to be," she said casually, not looking up. I paused. "What do you mean?" She shrugged. "Just before everything got so routine. I miss when we were spontaneous. When we used to wake up and just drive somewhere." I knew she wasn't talking about me. She was projecting someone else into that memory, stitching her affair into our history like it had always belonged there. I watched her closely. She didn't flinch. She just folded my shirt and placed it in the wrong drawer, like she'd never really paid attention to where it went in the first place. That night, I decided I needed help. Not therapy, not a confrontation, but evidence. I reached out to my cousin Drew, who works in private surveillance. He owed me a favor from years back when I helped him through a rough divorce. I didn't give him all the details. I just said I need eyes. Quiet ones. He didn't ask questions. Over the next few days, Drew installed 2 small cameras in the house, one in the living room lamp base and one behind a vent in the hallway facing our front door. He also set up motion-triggered backups on the cloud. Nothing invasive. Just enough to track movements and confirm what I already knew. And it didn't take long. The following Thursday, while I was at work, I watched the cloud feed from my phone. At 11:22 a.m., she opened the front door. Vance stepped in without hesitation. He kissed her. Not a shy peck. A full, hands-in-her-hair kiss like they'd done it 1,000 times. She laughed, let him inside, closed the blinds, and for 2 hours, the house I paid for became a stage for her betrayal. She used her couch, our kitchen, our guest bathroom. She poured him wine from the bottle I bought for our anniversary last year, the one she said she was saving for something meaningful. I watched in silence. I didn't cry. I didn't throw my phone. I didn't scream. I just watched. And when she walked him out, when they kissed again under the porch light like teenagers sneaking around, I realized something important. She wasn't hiding anymore. She thought I would never act, that I would stay the same quiet man who asked permission to be upset. She had built her world on the assumption that my silence meant approval. But she was wrong. Because sometimes the quiet ones are the ones you should fear most. I didn't confront her that night. I made her favorite dinner instead, roasted salmon, garlic asparagus, and mashed potatoes with chives. I even opened a bottle of wine. She looked surprised, maybe a little suspicious. "What's all this for?" she asked. I smiled. "I just wanted to remind you how good things used to be." She clinked her glass against mine and said, "That's sweet." And in that moment, I made a choice, not to rage, not to accuse, but to disappear piece by piece, just like she did. Only this time she wouldn't see it coming. The strange thing about pretending is that it's exhausting only when you're the one doing it. Elora, meanwhile, seemed more energized than ever. She was glowing, laughing louder, humming around the house, leaving earlier and coming home later. And every time I so much as tilted my head to observe her, she gave me that polished, confident smile, like a pageant queen in a house of cards. But I wasn't playing her game anymore. I was playing mine. After the surveillance footage confirmed everything, I stopped asking questions. I stopped offering hugs. I stopped leaving my slippers beside the bed. I started removing pieces of myself from the life she thought she controlled. Subtle things at first. I canceled my gym membership, the one she signed me up for 2 years ago, supposedly so we could stay active together. I deleted our shared streaming profiles, logged her out of mine, and left no explanation. I moved my personal documents from the desk drawer in the home office to a safety deposit box she didn't know about. I started taking walks without saying where I was going, just vanished for a few hours every evening. Not to spy on her. Not to sulk. Just to exist somewhere she wasn't. I let her keep lying. And she got better at it. Sloppio too. I began to notice how often she smiled when looking at her phone. How often she took her laptop into the bathroom. How carefully she started saying the word client, stretching it, softening it, making it sound like a joke she was in on and I wasn't. One night, I decided to test her. I left a handwritten note on the fridge that said, "Gone out of town for work. Back late tomorrow night." I signed it with my name, even added a quick smiley face like I always did when we were good. Then I packed a bag and drove exactly 10 blocks away to a cheap extended stay motel. I checked in using my middle name, booked the room for 2 nights, and turned off my phone. From my tablet, I watched the live feed of our living room. And at 7:47 p.m. she walked Vance through the door again, like it was routine. She wasn't even rushing anymore. She kicked off her shoes, laughed as she handed him a drink, and then, and this is what truly broke something inside me, she looked around, sighed, and said, "I swear, he's never here anymore." She said it like I was the one slipping away. As if I had disappeared long before she started cheating. As if my vanishing act was the reason for her betrayal, not the result of it. And when Vance kissed her again, this time pressing her against the kitchen counter where I used to surprise her with roses, I understood the truth in full. She had rewritten the story. Not just in her mind, but aloud. To others. I wasn't the husband she betrayed. I was the absent one. The disinterested one. The man she tried to love but just couldn't reach. I didn't sleep that night. I just watched them move through my home like tourists with a key. They left the next morning at 6:23 a.m., she in his car, wearing a hoodie I'd never seen before. She didn't even glance at the security camera I'd placed in the hallway. When I returned home later that day, everything was back in place. The pillows on the couch fluffed. Wine glasses in the sink. Her hairbrush in the bathroom sink, still damp from her morning shower. She was at work as usual. Or maybe she wasn't. I didn't care. I opened my email and started making arrangements. I hired a moving company to come in 2 weeks. I secured a small apartment in a neighboring town under a lease with just my name on it. I scheduled my mail to be forwarded. And I started working with a divorce attorney who had one simple instruction from me. No drama, no confrontation, just closure. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I called her mother. Now Elora and her mom aren't close. They hadn't spoken in nearly a year after a huge falling out over a loan. But I always liked Diane. She was blunt, protective, and never quite trusted Elora's need for constant validation. I told her what had happened. Not the lurid details, just the truth. "Elora's been seeing someone else," I said. "For months. I just wanted you to know because I don't think she'll tell you herself." Diane sighed long and hard. Then she said something that surprised me. "I'm not shocked. I'm just sorry it took this long for you to see it." That night, when Elora got home, I had dinner waiting again. But this time, it wasn't salmon or steak. It was takeout pizza and 2 beers. Casual. Lazy. Almost distant. We sat at the table together, but we didn't really talk. She glanced at her phone between bites, asked me how work was, pretended like everything was fine. "You seem tired lately," she said mid-slice. I smiled. "Yeah. It's been a long week." She tilted her head. "You okay?" I looked her straight in the eyes for the first time in weeks. "Yeah. I think I'm finally starting to wake up." She didn't know what I meant. Not yet. But in that moment, I think she felt it, the shift. The quiet. The absence of fear in my voice. And when I cleared the table and walked into the other room without saying another word, she watched me go with a strange, unspoken confusion on her face. She was starting to realize something was wrong. But it was far too late to fix it. I stopped speaking first. That was the first thing I changed. No more "good morning." No more "how was your day?" No more initiating conversations just to keep things feeling normal. I answered when spoken to, nodded when necessary, smiled politely like a distant coworker on the edge of quitting. The more I disappeared, the more she leaned into the performance of our marriage. She started baking again, of all things. Banana bread on a Wednesday night. Chocolate chip muffins before work. She even bought flowers once and pretended they were for me. "Elora, you've never bought me flowers," I said that day with a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. She laughed. "Well, people change." I studied her in that moment. Her voice. Her posture. How carefully she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the same way she used to when she was lying to her parents about skipping class. She was working hard to keep the illusion alive, and the strange part was it wasn't even for me anymore. She wasn't trying to win me back. She was trying to maintain the lie long enough to leave it on her own terms. I could feel it like static under my skin. She began talking about renovating the guest room casually while flipping through a home design magazine one night. Said we should repaint it a brighter color, maybe make it more functional. I asked what for, and she shrugged. "I don't know, maybe a workspace. Or something else." Just feels like it's time to freshen things up. The same guest room she used to text him from. The same one where I found her whispering in the dark. I said nothing. I didn't argue. I didn't stop her. Let her decorate the coffin, I thought. She had no idea I was preparing to bury the marriage inside it. Meanwhile, I began quietly liquidating. Not our assets, just my life with her. I sold my half of the comic book collection we once built together in college. She hadn't touched it in years. I donated my vintage records, the ones she used to mock me for buying. And I took down every photo in the hallway that included the two of us, replacing them with generic landscapes I printed off the internet. When she asked where the pictures had gone, I simply said I thought it was time for something new. She nodded slowly, blinking longer than usual as if she was trying to compute what part of me had changed and when. But by now her lies were unraveling in plain sight. One afternoon I came home early and heard her on the phone. She was in the kitchen, pacing, barefoot, whispering in that soft, intimate tone she thought I never noticed. No, he won't be here. I told you Thursdays he's always at the branch office. You're fine. Pause. I miss you too. Stop worrying so much. Another pause. No. He doesn't ask questions anymore. Honestly, I think I don't know. Checked out. That part made me smile. Because she was right. I had checked out. But not because I was weak or confused. Because I finally saw her for who she was and I had no interest in sharing oxygen with a person who only remembered I existed when she needed a place to hide her secrets. Later that week, she invited friends over for dinner. It was a couple we used to double date with, Ron and Mallory. Good people. Smart. Warm. The kind of people who notice things even when they don't say them out loud. During dinner, I played the role, polite, attentive, even cheerful. I poured drinks, laughed at old stories, asked Ron about his car trouble, complimented Mallory on her new hair color. Elora beamed, acting like everything was perfect, like we were still the golden couple everyone thought we were. But at one point, Mallory looked across the table at me and said something that made Elora freeze mid-chew. You've changed, Curtis. I smiled. In a good way or a bad way? Mallory hesitated. In a quieter way. Elora laughed too quickly. He's just working too much these days. We're planning a little vacation soon, aren't we, babe? I raised an eyebrow. Are we? There was a pause. A long one. The kind of silence that falls between people who realize they're not speaking the same language anymore. Ron changed the subject, bless him. But I saw it in Mallory's eyes, she knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. And Elora saw it too. Her smile grew tighter, her posture more rigid. She kept glancing at me throughout the evening like she was trying to find a crack in the new armor I'd built. After our guests left, she didn't say much. She washed dishes with more force than necessary, slamming a plate once, muttering something about being tired. And for the first time in months, she was the one who came to bed last. She slid under the covers like she was sneaking into someone else's house. Didn't speak. Didn't reach for me. And in the dark, I whispered. Elora? She turned slightly. Yeah? I think we should talk soon. A long silence. About what? She asked, voice too light. I didn't answer. Because she already knew. The next morning, she didn't cook. Didn't make coffee. Barely looked at me. She left the house with her keys and her phone and didn't even say goodbye. Which was fine. Because goodbye was coming. Just not from her. She thought she still had time to control how it all ended. She thought she could polish the story, rehearse the lines, walk away with the narrative wrapped in a bow. But I had a different ending in mind. And it was already in motion. That Sunday morning, she asked if we could take a walk together. That was rare. Elora never asked for walks unless she wanted to drop a conversation she had rehearsed in advance. I already knew what this was, a soft launch for whatever version of the story she'd soon be telling others. Probably something about growing apart, how she loved me but wasn't in love, how I had become distant. She was laying the groundwork for the ending where she got to leave on her terms, clean and guilt-free. I agreed to the walk. She led us through the neighborhood like she always did, along the same loop we used to take during the early pandemic when the world felt frozen but we still held hands. Not anymore. Our hands stayed in our pockets. Her mouth moved though. Fast. She started with compliments. Said she admired how calm I'd been lately. How she felt like things were improving. She even joked that maybe we were finally turning a corner. I nodded along, letting her believe that. Letting her shape her little fantasy. Then, after we passed the old pine tree where she once carved our initials, I've checked, it's still there, even if the bark around it has grown thick. She paused and turned to face me. Curtis, she said gently, I think we should take a break. Not a divorce. Not even a separation. A break. As if this were some college romance and not a legal, decade-long commitment. I wanted to laugh. But I didn't. I tilted my head and asked why. Her eyes did that blinking thing again, the one she did when she wasn't sure how honest to be. I just need space. I think we both do. I've been feeling boxed in. Stuck. And I don't want us to start resenting each other. I think if we just take a little time apart, it'll help. There it was. Her exit ramp. Her soft landing. She wanted to leave without being the villain. She wanted me to agree, maybe even thank her for being brave enough to suggest it. But I wasn't playing along. Not anymore. I gave her a long look, one that held no anger, no sadness, just quiet resignation. If that's what you need, I said softly, then take it. She looked surprised. Almost disappointed. Like she expected resistance, a plea, maybe even a tear. But there was nothing left in me to beg with. We walked back in silence. When we got to the house, she headed to the bedroom and began pulling out a suitcase. Not the attic one, a different one. One I'd never seen before, floral patterned with gold zippers. She was smiling faintly. Not happy but proud. Like she'd done something mature. I helped her pack. I stood in the doorway and handed her things when she asked. Sweatpants. Books. Her favorite scarf. She didn't ask why I wasn't saying more. She assumed I was in shock. Or too hurt to speak. She was already rewriting the goodbye in her head, already rehearsing the story for her friends. He didn't fight me on it, she'd say. It just kind of ended. But the truth was, I wasn't broken. I was ready. She left that afternoon. Didn't slam the door. Didn't even look back. She said, I'll call you in a few days, okay? And drove away without waiting for my answer. As soon as she was out of sight, I sprang into action. I called the movers and told them we were good to go a week ahead of schedule. I booked a locksmith for the next day. I activated the backup surveillance archive I had stored offline, labeled, documented, and copied onto a USB stick locked inside a small fireproof case. I printed the photos, the hotel timestamps, the receipts, the messages I'd recovered from her old iCloud account. Not for revenge. Not to humiliate her. But because I knew this wasn't over. Elora would come back, not because she loved me, but because she wouldn't be able to stand not controlling how this ended. And when she did, I needed to be ready. I boxed up her belongings. Every shoe, every dress, every perfume bottle, even the lipstick she only wore for him. I stacked the boxes neatly in the garage. I changed every password she had access to. I logged her out of our shared Spotify, Netflix, Amazon, bank, everything. I called my lawyer and told him I wanted the divorce papers finalized by Friday. The next 3 days passed in eerie quiet. She didn't call, didn't text, didn't check in on the dog. I think she was waiting for me to reach out first, to fall apart, to chase her, to give her a chance to feel like she still held the power. But when the silence stretched longer than she expected, she cracked. Thursday night at 11:07 p.m. she rang the doorbell. I didn't answer. She knocked. Still nothing. Then she texted. Elora, hey, are you home? Elora, can we talk? Elora, Curtis? I waited exactly 15 minutes. Then I walked out the front door and met her on the porch. She was wearing that same red hoodie she used to borrow from me. Hair pulled back, no makeup, eyes tired. You changed the locks, she said. I nodded. Yeah. She looked around like she was trying to ground herself. What's going on? I handed her an envelope. Inside, divorce papers, notarized and ready. A list of her items in the garage. A check reimbursing her half of the utility deposit. And a note, just one sentence, handwritten. I've been gone longer than you realize. You just never noticed. She read it twice. Looked up at me. And for the first time in years, Elora had nothing to say. Not a lie. Not a protest. Just silence. I turned, walked back inside, and closed the door. Behind me, I heard her whisper my name once. Not in anger, but in disbelief. Like she just realized the story she had been writing wasn't hers anymore. Elora didn't return the next morning. Not physically, at least. But her presence lingered in texts, in voicemails, in little attempts to reopen the door she thought would never fully shut. I got one the next day. Can we just talk? I didn't think you'd actually want this. That one made me pause. Not because it hurt, it didn't anymore, but because it confirmed everything I had quietly come to understand. She never truly believed I'd leave. I wasn't a man to her, I was a fixture. The coat rack in the hallway. The porch light that was always on. Steady. Predictable. Safe. And she thought she could leave me on pause, go chase whatever thrill she thought she deserved, and come back when the excitement wore off. But something changed the day I walked away from my own birthday dinner. The day I stopped asking to be seen. I didn't respond to her messages. Not out of spite, I had simply moved on. Silence wasn't revenge. It was clarity. For the first time in years, I was living for myself. The new apartment was small, but it had something our old home hadn't had in a long time: peace. No whispered lies behind a bathroom door. No laughter meant for someone else. Just me. My own space. My own air. Waffles came with me. I didn't ask. I just opened the back seat and he jumped in like he already knew. He adapted fast, fewer nervous whimpers, more tail wags. Like he could finally rest, too. 2 weeks later, I filed the finalized divorce documents. I never got a dramatic confrontation. No scene. No screaming. I think Elora was too stunned by my silence to mount a defense. That's the thing with people who rely on manipulation: they expect explosions, not a slow and deliberate exit. She signed the papers without a fight. The last message she ever sent me came on a Wednesday at 3:14 a.m. "I'm sorry. I didn't expect to miss you this much." I didn't reply. I archived it. That was the closure she needed, not me. And while she went on crafting a story to tell her friends, I began rewriting mine. Not long after, I reconnected with an old friend from high school, Lila. We'd lost touch after graduation, but she'd reached out after seeing me post a photo of waffles on my private Instagram. It started with coffee, turned into a long walk, then a late dinner where we both stayed an hour longer than we'd planned. She didn't ask about Elora at first. She asked about me. My hobbies. My plans. She asked me when I last felt truly at peace. No one had asked me that in years. And when I told her the truth, that peace started the moment I stopped begging to be chosen, she didn't look sad. She looked proud. We're taking things slow. No grand promises. No pretending. Just two people who know what it feels like to lose themselves in someone else and who've made a quiet vow to never do that again. As for Elora, I don't know where she is now. And I don't need to. She didn't just lose a husband. She lost the man who knew her better than anyone and loved her anyway. But I didn't lose anything. I found myself again. And I'm not letting go.